a mind absolved from life, made calm to know, a heart divorced from the blindness and the pang, the seal of tears, the bond of ignorance. He turned to find that wide world failure's cause. Away he looked from nature's visible face, and sent his gaze into the viewless vast, the formidable unknown infinity, asleep behind the endless coil of things that carries the universe in its timeless breaths, and the ripples of its being are our lives. The worlds are built by its unconscious breath, and matter and mind are its figures or its powers. Our waking thoughts, the output of its dreams. The veil was rent that covers nature's depths. He saw the fount of the world's lasting pain, and the mouth of the black pit of ignorance. The evil guarded at the roots of life raised up its head and looked into his eyes. On a dim bank where dies subjective space, from a stark ridge overlooking all that is, a tenebrous awakened nations, our wide blank eyes, wondering at time and form, stared at the inventions of the living void and the abyss whence our beginnings rose. Behind appeared a grey carved mask of night, watching the birth of all created things. A hidden puissance, conscious of its force, a vague and lurking presence everywhere, a contrary doom that threatens all things made, a death figuring at the dark seed of life, seemed to engender and to slay the world. Then from the sombre mystery of the gulfs, and from the hollow bosom of the mask, something crept forth that seemed a shapeless thought, a fatal influence upon creatures stole, whose lethal touch pursued the immortal spirit. On life was laid the haunting finger of death, and overcast with error, grief and pain, the soul's native will for truth and joy and light. A deformation coiled that claimed to be the being's very turn, nature's true drive. A hostile and perverting mind at work in every corner, ensconced of conscious life, corrupted truth with her own formulas. Interceptor of the listening of the soul, afflicting knowledge with the hue of doubt, it captured the oracles of the occult gods, effaced the signposts of life's pilgrimage, cancelled the firm rock edicts graved by time, and on the foundations of the cosmic law erected its bronze pylons of misrule. Even light and love, by that cloaked dangerous spell, turned from the brilliant nature of the gods to fallen angels and misleading suns, became themselves a danger and a charm, a perverse sweetness, heaven-born malefice. Its power could deform divinest things. A wind of sorrow breathed upon the world. All thought with falsehood was besieged. All act stamped with defect, or with frustration's sign. All high attempt with failure or vain success. But none could know the reason of his fall. The grey mask whispered, and though no sound was heard, yet in the ignorant heart a seed was sown that bore black fruit of suffering, death, and bale. Out of the chill steps of a bleak unseen, invisible, wearing the night's grey mask, arrived the shadowy, dreadful messengers, invaders from a dangerous world of power, ambassadors of evil's absolute. In silence, the inaudible voices spoke, hands that none saw planted the fatal grain. No form was seen, yet a dire work was done. An iron decree in crooked uncials written imposed a law of sin, an adverse fate. Life looked at him with changed and somber eyes. Her beauty he saw, and the yearning heart in things that with a little happiness is content, answering to a small ray of truth or love. He saw her gold sunlight and her far blue sky, her green of leaves and hue and scent of flowers, and the charm of children, and the love of friends, and the beauty of women, and kindly hearts of men, but saw too the dreadful powers, the driver moods, and the anguish she has strewn upon her ways. Fate waiting on the unseen steps of men, and her evil and sorrow, and last gift of death. A breath of disillusion and decadence, corrupting watch for life's maturity, and made to rot the full grain of the soul. Progress became a purveyor of death. A world that clung to the law of a slain light, cherished the putrid corpses of dead truths, hailed twisted forms as things free, new and true. Beauty from ugliness and evil drank, feeling themselves guests at a banquet of the gods, and tasted corruption like a high-spiced food. A darkness settled on the heavy air. It hunted the bright smile from nature's lips, and slew the native confidence in her heart, and put fierce crooked look into her eyes. The lust that warps the spirit's natural good, replaced by manufactured virtue and vice, the frank, spontaneous impulse of the soul, afflicting nature with the dual's lie. Their twin values whetted a forbidden jest, made evil a relief from spurious good. The ego battened on righteousness and sin, and each became an instrument of hell. In rejected heaps, by a monotonous road, the old simple delights were left to lie on the wasteland of life's descent to night. All glory of life dimmed, turnest into a doubt. All beauty ended in an aging face. All power was dubbed a tyranny, cursed by God, and truth a fiction, needed by the mind. The chase of joy was now a tired hunt. All knowledge was left a questioning ignorance. As from a womb obscure, he saw emerge the body and visage of a dark unseen, hidden behind the fair outside of life. Its dangerous commerce is our suffering's cause. Its breath is a subtle poison in men's hearts. All evil starts from that ambiguous face. A peril haunted now the common air. The world grew full of menacing energies, and wherever turned for help or hope, his eyes, in field and house, in street and camp and mart, he met the proud and stealthy come and go of armed disquieting bodied influences. A march of goddess figures, dark and nude, alarmed the earth with grandiose unease. Appalling footsteps drew invisibly near. Shapes that were threats invaded the dream light, and ominous beings passed in on the road, whose very gaze was a calamity. A charm and sweetness, sudden and formidable, faces that raised alluring lips and eyes, approached him, armed with beauty like a snare, but hid a fatal meaning in each line, and could in a moment dangerously change. But he alone discerned that screened attack. A veil upon the inner vision lay, a force was there that hid its dreadful steps. All was belied, yet thought itself the truth. All were beset, but knew not of the siege, for none could see the authors of their fall. Aware of some dark wisdom still withheld, that was the seal and warrant of this strength, he followed the track of dim tremendous steps, returning to the night from which they came. A tract he reached, unbuilt and owned by none. There all could enter, but none stay for long. It was a no man's land of evil air, a crowded neighborhood without one home, a borderland between the world and hell. There, unreality was nature's lord. It was a space where nothing could be true, for nothing was what it had claimed to be, a high appearance wrapped a spacious void. Yet nothing would confess its own pretense, even to itself in the ambiguous heart. A vast deception was the law of things. Only by that deception they could live. An unsubstantial nihil guaranteed the falsehood of the forms this nature took and made them seem a while to be and live. A borrowed magic drew them from the void. They took a shape and stuff that was not theirs, and showed a color that they could not keep, mirrors to a phantasm of reality. Each rainbow brilliance was a splendid lie, a beauty unreal glazed a glamour face. Nothing could be relied on to remain. Joy nurtured tears, and good and evil proved, but never out of evil one plucked good. Love ended early in hate, delight killed with pain, truth into falsity grew, and death ruled life. A power that laughed at the mischief of the world, an irony that joined the world's contraries and flung them into each other's arms to strive, put a sardonic rictus on God's face. Aloof, its influence entered everywhere and left a cloven hoof mark on the breast. A twisted heart and a strange somber smile mocked at the sinister comedy of life, announcing the advent of a perilous form. An ominous trait softened its dire footfall, that none might understand or be on guard. None heard until a dreadful grasp was close, or else all augured a divine approach. An air of prophecy felt, a heavenly hope. Listen for a gospel, watch for a new star. The fiend was visible, but cloaked in light. He seemed a helping angel from the skies. He armed untruth with scripture and the law. He deceived with wisdom, with virtue slew the soul, and led it to perdition by the heavenward path. A lavish sense he gave of power and joy, and when arose the warning from within, he reassured the earth with dulcet tones, or took the mind captive in its own net. His rigorous logic made the false seem true. Amazing the elect with holy law, he spoke as with the very voice of God. The air was full of treachery and use. Truth-speaking was a stratagem in that place. Ambush lurked in a smile, and peril made safety its cover. Trust its entries gave, falsehood came laughing with the eyes of truth. Each friend might turn an enemy or spy. The hand one clasped enslaved a dagger step, and an embrace could be doom's iron cage. Agony and danger stalked their trembling prey, and softly spoke as to a timid friend. Attack sprang suddenly, vehement and unseen. Fear leaped upon the heart at every turn, and cried out with an anguished, dreadful voice. It called for one to say, but none came near. All warily walked, for death was ever close. Yet caution seemed a vain expense of care, for all that guarded proved a deadly net. And when, after long suspense, salvation came and brought a glad relief, disarming strength, it served as a smiling passage to worse fate. There was no truce and no safe place to rest. One dared not slumber or put up one's arms. It was a world of battle and surprise. All who were there lived for themselves alone, all warred against all, but with a common hate, turned on the mind that sought some higher good. Truth was exiled, lest she should dare to speak, and hurt the heart of darkness with her light, or bring her pride of knowledge to blaspheme the settled anarchy of established things. Then the scene changed, but kept its dreadful core. Altering its form, the life remained the same. A capital was there without a state. It had no ruler, only groups that strove. He saw a city of ancient ignorance, founded upon a soil that knew not light. There, each in his own darkness, walked alone. Only they agreed to differ in evil's paths, to live in their own way, for their own selves, or to enforce a common lie and wrong. Their ego was lord upon his peacock seat, and falsehood said by him, his mate and queen. The world turned to them as heaven to truth and God. Injustice justified by firm decrees, the sovereign weights of errors legalized straight. But all the weights were false, and none the same. Ever she watched with her balance and a sword, lest any sacrilegious word expose the sanctified formulas of her old misrule. In high professions, wrapped self-will walked wide, and license talked, preaching of order and right. There was no altar raised to liberty. True freedom was avowed and hunted down. Harmony and tolerance nowhere could be seen. Each group proclaimed its dire and naked law. A frame of ethics, knobbed with scriptural rules, or a theory passionately believed and praised, a table seemed of high heaven's sacred code. A formal practice mailed an iron shot gave to a rude and ruthless warrior kind, drawn from the savage bowels of the earth, a proud, stern poise of harsh nobility, a civic posture rigid and formidable. But all their private acts belied the pose. Power and utility were their truth and right. An eagle rapacity clawed its coveted good. Beaks pecked and talons tore all weaker prey. In their sweet secrecy of pleasant sins, nature they obeyed, and not a moralist God. In concentrators, in bundles of contraries, they did what in others they would persecute. When their eyes looked upon their fellows' vice, and indignation flamed, a virtuous wrath, oblivious of their own deep-hid offense, mob-like they stoned a neighbor caught in sin. A pragmatic judge within passed false decrees, posed worst iniquities on equity's base, reasoned ill actions just, sanctioned the scale of the merchant ego's interest and desire. Thus was a balance kept, the world could live. A zealot fervor pushed their ruthless cults. All faith not theirs bled, scourged as heresy. They questioned, captured, tortured, burned or smoked, and forced the soul to abandon right or die. Amid their clashing creeds and warring sects, religion sat upon a blood-stained throne. 100 tyrannies oppressed and slew, and founded unity upon fraud and force. Only what seemed was prized as real there. The ideal was a cynic, ridiculous butt, hooted by the crowd, mocked by enlightened wits, spiritual seeking, wandered outcasted, a dreamer's self-deceiving wave of thought, or mad chimera dream, or hypocrite's faith. Its passionate instinct trailed through minds obscure, lost in the circuits of the ignorance. A lie was there, the truth, and truth a lie. Here must the traveller of the upward way, for daring hell's kingdoms, winds the heavenly route, pause, or pass slowly through that perilous space, a prayer upon his lips and the great name. If probed not, all discernment's keen spear point, he might stumble into falsity's endless net. Over his shoulder often he must look back, like one who feels on his neck an enemy's breath, else stealing up behind a treasonous blow might prostrate cast and pin to unholy soil, pierced through his back by evil's poignant stay. So might one fall on the eternal's road, forfeiting the spirit's lonely chance in time, and no news of him reach the waiting gods, marked missing in the register of souls, his name, the index of a failing hope, the position of a dead, remembered star. Only were safe who kept God in their hearts, courage their armor, faith their sword. They must walk, the hand ready to smite, the eye to scout, casting a javelin regard in front, heroes and soldiers of the army of light. Hardly even so, the grisly danger past, released into a calmer, purer air, they dared at length to breathe and smile once more. Once more they moved beneath a real sun. Though hell claimed rule, the spirit still had power. This no man's land he passed without debate. Him the heights missioned, him the abyss desired. None stood across his way, no voice forbid. For swift and easy is the downward path, and now towards the night was turned his face.